Hey everybody, welcome back to In Bed with a Millennial. I'm the Millennial Javeda Bay, and this is my bed. It is still September, which means it's still Sexual Health Awareness Month, which means I'm still on my Sex Ed for the College Pleasure Seeker mini-series. And today I want to talk about safer sex practices in college because it's important. And I want to preface this with I got my first STI when I was an undergrad. Did it absolutely wreck me? And I was like, oh my god, my world's ending. I'll never have sex again. Yes. Was that over dramatic? Hindsight, yes, but in like the moment, like those are valid feelings because I did not have a broad enough like understanding of like sexual health, STIs, like anything. All I had was like the stigma and shame around STIs. And I want to clear that up. I don't want to have anybody repeating the experience I went through because oh my gosh, if you ask my mother, she was like, she was dramatic as crap. She was crying all over the place. I don't want you to have that stress, anxiety, worry, any of that. So I want to prepare you. And that's why we're talking about safer sex practices. Um, because a lot of folks do get their first STI when they are in college. Like it's actually very common. But if that's something that you're like, I would like to skip that part of the college experience, I'm going to try my best to make that as feasible as possible for you. So first things first, when it comes to safer sex, one, it's called safer sex. There's no such thing as safe sex. Anytime you are engaging in sexual activity with another person, there's always going to be a chance of STI transmission or something else because you're interacting with another human being. Our bodies carry bacteria, germs, all kinds of things. And if you're messing, touching with somebody else, there's always going to be potential because unless you are bathing and doing everything for that person and making sure that like they're all good, like all you have is someone's word. So it's important to know what you can do on your side as preventative to minimize chances of things that you might not want to happen. One, safer sex. What exactly does that look like, Jave? What does that entail? Well, it's going to be a mix of like preventative measures in terms of like your STI testing, because if you don't know your status, you don't know anything. So STI testing is very important. And honestly, the college university setting is one of my favorite places around STI testing because most colleges and universities have a health center, which means you have a more accessible like place to go for STI testing than once you graduate and you're a real grown up in the real world, because outside of that, your option is really going to your doctor's office, which once you graduate, you'll realize is quite difficult to do because it's not as easy to get regular doctor's appointments on like a frequency at that level. Like it's that's not the point. But college university health centers are really great because you can schedule an appointment whenever you need it to go in and do your STI testing. And generally, like if you are someone who has parents that do have health insurance, like you're more than likely on their health insurance, which means that like STI testing more than likely should be covered by that. And you'll be able to use it at your health center without any stress or worry. If you are not someone that has parents whose health insurance you are on, generally your university or college does have like student health insurance plans that you could also get through them, which would like lower the stress of this whole situation because then they're billing your health insurance for the STI testing rather than you paying out of pocket. But also, I want to say that the pricing of out of pocket STI testing on college campuses is not drastically high as if it were if you went to a regular doctor's office. But I could be wrong. So, like, just double check these things, ask your health center before you like schedule the appointment. Like, start with the billing department and find out how much stuff costs and if your stuff is covered, because the last thing you want is a surprise after you like tried to be like responsible and like take proactive measures and then you're like $200. So do the work ahead of time to minimize the stress at the checkout counter, if that makes sense. um but being able to have access to STI testing like that is a really great way to like actively prioritize safer sex practices, because it's so much harder once you graduate from college to get access to STI testing that is like affordable and like covered by insurance and like all those things. So that's really great. Also, if your college or university has like an LGBTQ center, they generally have some type of connections to STI testing in some way, shape, or form. Sometimes it's free, not always, but like that's something that you could look into. And in that same vein, LGBTQ centers and health like centers in general on college and university campuses also provide a lot of barrier methods. So if you are ever in need of like external condoms, you can usually get those for free at your university health center. Like they generally like have them like up on a wall. You can just grab them and go. So like having access to that is really great. If you do have a little bit more income, or you have parents that are like really cool and chill, as you're doing your like back to school shopping or like dorm room shopping, uh Costco, Sam's Club, BJ's, all the like big box warehouse stores generally have like a big old box of condoms that you can purchase. I did have my mom buy me some when I went away to college. I wasn't having sex, but I wanted to be prepared for others. So you can go and you can stock up and have a lot of them that way. If you don't necessarily feel comfortable going into the health center every time you need some to grab some off the wall. They might also have other barrier methods like dental dams, or maybe possibly internal condoms. Not a guarantee at all, like colleges and universities. I know at the University of Oregon, they do provide internal condoms for free for students. So just check and see what your health center or your like LGBTQ center or just university in general provides in terms of barrier methods. Because it's honestly in like the school's best interest to provide that stuff for free, because like bulk buying is so much more affordable. Like they're not spending as much money on it. Also, like there's grants and stuff they can get to cover it. And by providing it to students, they, minimize the chances of their students getting pregnant and then dropping out and losing the money. So like it's in their best interest. And if you're like, Javay, my college or university doesn't offer any of these, how do I get them to do it? Hit me up and I will absolutely give you like the bullet point talking points to make to them of like why they should be doing their due diligence and providing it for their students. So STI testing and barrier methods are going to be really great. Though like they have those free options, they don't always have all of the options available to you, like the fact that they might not have internal condoms, and a good chunk of like universities and colleges don't carry laurels, which if you've been on my YouTube channel before or follow me on social media or been to a workshop or anything, you've heard me talk about them. But they are wearable latex undies that work as a barrier method for protection during oral. So they're a really great option if you are someone that's a little bit more nervous and wanting to still practice like safety specifically for oral sex, because as we all know, like most people are not educated around like safer sex practices for oral sex, because they're like, oh, it's oral, it's fine. No, oral still runs a potential risk of transmitting STIs, like, but that is another option. And if you're like, wait, I want that, that would make me feel like so much more comfortable, go to this website and use this code and you can save on a purchase of laurels. And they also have like subscriptions, so you can set it up and just like continuously get them in the mail so you never run out. Definitely make sure you check out laurels if you want to practice safer sex, specifically around oral sex of the vulva or the anus. But yeah, STI testing and barrier methods are obviously like very well known safer sex practices, but there are other things that you could do as well to increase your chances, or like to like more actively participate in safer sex. The first one being using lube, and everyone likes to be like, Javay, what the heck are you talking about? Lube is a safer sex practice because it minimizes friction, which means it's minimizing micro tears, and in terms of like anal play, anal fissures, which if you do have them, they make you more susceptible to STIs. So using lube helps minimize that. Also, using lube is going to make it a more pleasurable experience. Nothing is worse than a dry orifice being penetrated. I know saying that sounded unpleasant, didn't it? Yeah. So using lube is extremely important. And I highly recommend that everyone do it. Other safer sex practices that I think that we should integrate into this conversation of safer sex is going to be talking to people, like letting people know when you're going to go meet up with a hookup, because now safer sex is not just like worrying about STIs. Like we have to worry about our actual bodily safety, because the world is filled with like so much nonsense. So I also want you to like build in safety protective measures around your actual physical safety and well-being. So if you happen to be going to go hook up with somebody, let your roommate know, let your best friend know, let somebody know, share your location. Don't just be wandering off in these streets to go meet somebody that you saw swiped on like Tinder or Hinge or Field or wherever. Like actually make sure that you are sharing information with people and not just like boop, disappearing. Okay, that is a safer sex practice. Another safer sex practice that I feel like a lot of people will be like, Jamila, it's not a safer sex practice. It is actually understanding your body, what you like, what you don't like, to be able to communicate that. Because when it comes to college and like hookups and all that stuff, like why go through the struggle of like getting it right if you already know what you like? Does that make sense? So by having that knowledge and awareness, you are practicing safer sex because like you're not having to just like fiddle around in the dark, beat around the bush, and like walk away with this like unsatisfied, like disappointing feeling afterwards. So like that self knowledge to me is a safer sex practice because you could actively tell someone like, actually, no, I know I don't enjoy doing that activity. I don't want to do that. And it falls in that safer sex because I feel like it falls into that like consent piece. Like if you know what you like and enjoy, you can more actively proactively consent to it, rather than just being like, oh, I guess. And as a nice segue to that, consent is a safer sex practice. And I know a lot of people like still like to perpetuate the idea that like bringing up like consent like kills the mood. No, like your delivery of things can kill the mood, but like actively being like, hey, I want to make sure we're both in this and like we want to proceed with this is not killing a mood. It's actually super sexy to know that you respect and care about me enough to want to ensure that I actively want to go through with this and I'm not just doing it because it seems like that is the prescribed like step of or whatever the order of operations. There we go. So consent is absolutely a safer sex practice. And if you're like, how do we do it, Javay, and make it sexy? Easy peasy mac and cheesy, y'all. Depending on like how things are taking place. Like if this is somebody that you've already been talking to, then you can have the consent conversation, like the initial consent conversation, like over text and be like, hey, I feel like things are really heating up between us and I just want to make sure we're on the same page. Like, do you feel like we're on the like at a point where we might be progressing in terms of like physical activity together? If so, like I'm totally on board with like having a more detailed discussion about this when we get together later tonight. Like it's very easy. And if you're like, okay, but like I can't think of a text message like that on the spot, Javay, don't worry. If you are on my email list, then you will be getting an email this month with my text message starters for consent. Okay. So like just it's gonna be okay. But yeah, so like if it's the initial consent conversation, you can absolutely start over text message. If it's in person, which is when most people feel that it kills the mood, it doesn't have to be a, do you consent to this? Like, obviously, that is not a sexy delivery. But, like, hey, I was wondering, like, are you okay if I just, like, caress you on your leg? Or how would you feel if I just started nibbling on your ear right now? Like, you can ask the questions in a way that like ask for consent but in a sexy way. And the big piece that I use for this is always like say the activity. Like the consent piece sounds unsexy when you said like do you consent to us fucking, or like when you center it in that way it doesn't come off sexy, but when you center it as like, are you okay with me taking my hand and dragging it down and tickling you in your nether regions? Like, it's kind of like foreplay in that way. So consent is sexy. You just got to know how to use your words in a sexy way. And that's where a lot of people struggle. And I got a workshop if you want to learn the art of talking dirty, let me know. But yeah, so consent is a safer sex practice. And in the college setting, I think it's extremely important. We should over communicate consent because, again, as I said last week, it can start to get a little murky, especially as we introduce things like alcohol or drugs into the conversation. So over communicating consent in a college setting is something that I would highly recommend. Even in like an adult setting, like a regular life setting, like it's still a good idea. But definitely make sure you are prioritizing consent in your safer sex practices. And also listening to your gut. Listen to your intuition. That is a safer sex practice. If the person you were dancing with at that random apartment party was like super fun in that moment, but the minute y'all left, you kind of just started feeling weird about it, trust your gut, trust your instinct. You don't have to proceed. And again, this is why it's important to tell people where you are. Like, don't ever just leave a party with somebody and don't tell nobody, okay? Communicate with your people. Like, come up with code signals. I don't care if y'all like flapping your wings like a bat to let them know, like, hey, I'm leaving. Great. Should I have done that when I was an undergrad? Probably, but I'm out of it now. It's whatever. And the last piece of safer sex practices, which ties back to our first one or second one around like STI testing, is actually communicating around STI testing. So depending on where you are in like the state you are in school, when you go and get STI tested, I know in the state of Virginia, at least when I was an undergrad, it was. I don't know what it is now. if you came back with like a positive STI test, like the doctor would offer to reach out to your previous partners for you to let them know, because you like that's the law. Like you have to notify people of an STI. And they would do that legwork for you if you're like, I don't feel comfortable doing it. But that might not be the case everywhere. And so you have to be able to do your due diligence of communicating with partners potentially if there is an STI that is contracted. And now this is where I would like everyone to like take some time, journal, reflect, think about it. I don't care how you want to do it, but like if you are not at a point where you could confidently have a conversation and share with someone like, oh, hey, I tested positive for chlamydia. You should go get tested in case that like you contracted it from me, or like whatever it is. Like if you cannot have that mature adult conversation, you shouldn't be having sex. And I know it's like no one's place to tell you if you were ready or not, but like that is one of the clear markers of like if you're ready. If you cannot have a adult conversation and say to someone like, hey, you should probably go get tested, then you're not ready for sex, because that is the responsibility of engaging in sexual activity with others. So if you cannot do that, you do not need to do others. Okay? Okay. And I know it is overwhelming and like intimidating, and you're like, oh my gosh, how are they going to receive this? And the only reason you have those worries is because of the stigma and shame that is around STIs in our society. If we didn't like make everyone feel like, oh my God, an STI, it's the end of the world, it's the worst thing that could ever possibly happen to you, a lot more people would be more comfortable actually sharing like, hey, you should go get tested because I had like some weird discharge and I'm still waiting for my results. But like, if you want to be proactive about it, like, it's not easy, but we've made it this big thing because we've like added stigma and shame to STIs. So if you can't work through your stigma, like any like internalized stigma and shame around STIs, you shouldn't be having sex. And be mad at me all you want to if you're like, Javay, you shouldn't be telling people if they should or shouldn't have sex. I don't care. I am. But yeah, so like all of those pieces go into the safer sex practices of like the college experience. Take advantage of the resources you have available to you, because I promise you, when you graduate and get into the real world, they are gone and everything costs and it sucks. So milk the college experience and the college resources for safer sex practices as much as you can. And if you're like, wait, I still have some more questions, please drop them in the comments or shoot me an email, slide into my DMs on social media, whatever. I would love to answer them. And if I don't know the answer, if I don't specifically know the resources available at your institution, I can find someone that does. I can point you in the right direction, because I've been in the college university world for so long now that I generally know where to start first. So please don't be afraid to ask questions. I'm here to answer them. I want you to have a positive college/university experience. So don't be afraid to ask the questions, because the more informed you are, the more like the better decisions you can make for yourself. Okay? But yeah, make sure you subscribe to this YouTube channel, because hello, I'm here to help you have the best college experience ever. Why would you not want that? Also, because you subscribing to my YouTube channel really helps me in the completion of my dissertations, because the sooner I monetize this YouTube channel, the quicker I am bringing in money that can fund my dissertation research, because that stuff's expensive and I research areas that are not funded by the government. Oh my gosh. So I got to do it on my own. So if you could please help me by subscribing, I would greatly appreciate it. But yeah, definitely subscribe to this YouTube channel. Make sure you're following me on all the social media platforms, because I share different content there. And if you might need some like starter social media posts to start a conversation around consent or like STI testing, whatever, social media is a great place for that. And definitely make sure you subscribe to my email newsletter, because I send out stuff directly only to my email newsletter. So if you don't want to miss any of the goods, the really valuable resources that I'm like, I'm not just giving this away for nothing, subscribe to that email newsletter. Okay. But until then, I'm gonna see you later. Deuces.